imagine moving to a country and then watching it transform right before your eyes? Well, over 4 decades anyhow. You might not see those transformations real quickly, but they do happen. And I've been here in Indonesia since 1982. 4 decades, more than 4 decades. Yeah, I came to Indonesia in 1982, and let me tell you, this place has changed a lot. I'm Kate, an introvert expat living in Indonesia, making videos that encourage people to live the best life they can. Want to know what's changed the most? Let me tell you about just a few of the things that I've noticed. When I first arrived in Indonesia back in 1982, I couldn't have imagined just how much the country would change over the next 4 decades. Back then, I was just a curious traveler, stepping off the plane into a world that felt wildly different from what I knew in the US. And Indonesia still has that timeless charm. So much about daily life, though, here has shifted dramatically. As someone who lived here for 42 years now, I've had a front row seat to transformations that have been both subtle and sweeping. Let me take you through just a few of the everyday changes I've witnessed. The kind of things that sneak up on you until one day you stop and say, wow, this is not the Indonesia I first knew. Right, but let's now go back to 1982. One of the first things I noticed when I came here was the constant haze of cigarette smoke. It was everywhere. People smoked in restaurants, on buses, in offices, everywhere. It was just a normal part of life, especially for men. Fast forward to today, and while smoking has not decreased dramatically in overall numbers, you don't have to deal with it as much anymore. Yes, the change is noticeable because now public spaces are generally smoke-free. Malls, offices, restaurants, taxis, all are now smoke-free zones. Signs clearly mark no smoking, and people actually adhere to that. In addition, there is a growing awareness of health and the serious effects of secondhand smoke. So that was one thing. Here's another big shift that I noticed: traffic. Oh yeah, the traffic. When I first arrived in Jakarta, the streets were pure chaos. No discipline in the lanes at all. I can remember looking out a window on a high floor of an office building on Jalan Tamrin, main thoroughfare in Jakarta, in 1983. What I saw on that main thoroughfare was total chaos. Yeah, the lanes were marked by white paint, but nobody was actually driving in a lane. It was a free-for-all. But over the years, things started to change bit by bit. People began to actually stay in a particular lane and even signal when they changed lanes. Amazing, right? Look at the picture that's on your screen right now. That's not what I saw so many years ago. Is it perfect now? Of course not. That as a driver, you no longer have to feel like you're in a video game. So now let's talk about the increase of the middle class. When I first arrived, Indonesia's middle class had already started to grow very fast. In fact, utility companies found it difficult to keep up with the goods and services needed by a middle class. I lived in Jakarta Selatan in the 1980s. Electricity often went out. I didn't have air conditioning. I didn't like air conditioning at all, but I had fans that helped me deal with the heat. And of course, the electricity always went off during the hottest time of the day. And then when I moved from Jakarta to Yogyakarta, I thought, oh, well, the electricity will probably die more often in Yogyakarta. Yeah, I felt like Yogyakarta was less modern city, and it was, but that's not what happened. What a shock. The electricity was much more stable. Yeah, it went off once in a while, but not nearly as often as it had in Jakarta. When I tried to figure out why, it seemed that the middle class was growing so fast in Jakarta, but not in Yogyakarta, that it created extreme pressure on the electric company. But yeah, not in Yogyakarta. After all, Jakarta had lots of jobs for the middle class, and many people moved there from the countryside or smaller towns or smaller cities to Jakarta to earn their living. Jogja, on the other hand, was just a laid-back city with some universities, what seemed like a typical university town. But that has changed as well. At that time, I liked Jakarta a lot and had no plans to move. But when an attractive teaching job in Jogja was offered to me, I took it and found it to be such a pleasant, laid-back place. Traffic was easy, the electricity was stable. I immediately loved it. And the people I met were even friendlier than my Jakarta friends. Now, I can't pinpoint exactly when it happened, but Jogja has turned into a place with the kind of hustle and bustle that didn't occur all those years ago. And in fact, the traffic today reminds me of Jakarta traffic. Okay, it's not as bad as Jakarta, but you understand what I'm getting at. It's become a real problem. And the electricity is off even more now than I had experienced in Jakarta all those years ago. You know, about 10, 15 years ago, an architect friend mentioned to me that they were there were 5 new 5-star hotels being built here in Jogja. My response was, who's going to stay in that many big hotels? We don't have that many visitors, even though it's the second most popular place for tourism because of the famous Buddhist and Hindu temples, Borobudur and Prambanan. Well, I got an answer. Those hotels and more were built, and their occupancy rate today is really high. The moral of the story is, don't take advice from me. No. But back to the 1980s. In those days, malls were rare. Imported goods were expensive and very hard to find. But today, a thriving middle class drives consumer trends in ways that weren't imaginable in the 1980s. Today, malls are bustling with high-end international stores, many of them too expensive for my budget. But I remember how thrilled I was when Ace Hardware opened up in Jakarta, and now even in Jogja. Yes, the appetite for better quality goods and services has grown right along with people's incomes, and this growth has spurred innovation, entrepreneurship, and urban development across the country. Technology has also exploded in ways I couldn't have predicted in the 1980s. It was difficult to get a landline telephone in your home, at least in Jakarta. Remember what I said about goods and services for middle-class people in Jakarta not keeping up. Well, today, not a problem. No landline, no problem. Everyone's glued to a smartphone. Mobile banking, online shopping, digital wallets, are now the norm, just like other places throughout the world. Apps like Gojek and Grab, similar to Uber, have revolutionized how people get around, order food, run errands. I still remember the first time someone explained an app like Uber to me. I thought it sounded too good to be true. But now I can't imagine daily life without Gojek. These are just a few changes that I've noticed. There are so many more, but I don't want this video to turn into hours. Of course, not every change has been easy or perfect. Modernization brings growing pains. Urban areas have become more crowded, and the cost of living has increased. Environmental issues like pollution and deforestation are real concerns. But even these challenges have sparked greater public awareness and activism. People care more now. About the environment, they care. They organize cleanup events, support eco-friendly businesses, and talk openly about sustainability. But one of the most personal changes I've felt is the shift in how foreigners are interacted with by locals. In my early days here, I was a real novelty. Now, especially in cities, foreigners are no longer really noticed much. Indonesians remain incredibly warm and hospitable, but the reaction to foreigners feels more balanced now. So let me tell you, in so many ways, Indonesia has grown up in front of my eyes. And it's been a privilege to watch this place evolve, to see it modernize while still holding onto its heart. So if you're thinking about visiting or moving here, know this. Indonesia is no longer the mysterious, faraway land it once was for Westerners. It's now vibrant, connected, and increasingly comfortable for people from all walks of life. And yet it still holds that same gentle warmth that first kept me here more than 40 years ago. That balance between change and continuity, it's why I'm still here and why I'll probably never leave. So, thanks very much for watching, and please leave a comment below this video and let me know what you think. Bye for now. See you next time.